Hello, BAME Farm fans. Here we are at the husking bed for the Unisystem picker project, and we're going to put on a new fan belt. So the fan belt drives the fan. This is the trash fan up front, and I guess we might as well look inside for learning purposes. At the trash fan, all it is, and maybe you can see it in the darkness, it's just that two-paddled fan over there, and it's trying to suck all the loose material out and blow it at the side, like loose shucks, loose leaves, whatever, all that fun stuff. I guess while we're in here we can look and see the top section of the feeder house, and it's supposed to say like those upper trash rolls and the fingers. These are fresher rubber fingers. I mean, they're old, but I was told that the husking bed had a lot of work done to it near the end of its life. You can see in here that there's some of these husking pegs, so that's lovely. I may have to look for more of those. Now, not all of them have had husking pegs, and some of them over here, I can't tell if they're broke off or not, but I have seen a cheap fix is to just put a screw in it and then cut the screw off. So that could work. That's not why we're here. Not here to look down inside too much. So that's the front fan, and there's a fan in the back here, which is like the standard pull types that blows air up the husking bed and forward, and it's trying to blow the shucks loose from the ear so the rolls can pull them out. And there's a couple more metal husking pegs. That's probably not a factory piece there, that divider. That's different. Haven't seen anything like that before. A couple of these fingers wheels back here aren't great. That one's missing a couple, and this one's missing a couple. So that's not fantastic. And then back here, well, this is not factory. See, you can't see it here, but there's green paint on that, and it's a, not a pillow block, but it's a flange bearing. And they have these rubber paddles here. That one may get lost. See, that rubber is cracking right there. But this is supposed to be a bunch of fingers back here, but they put these paddles on instead because I don't know, these husking beds are notorious for ears getting stuck at the very base and then not pulling through. So, and this will ensure that they get flopped through, and it's because it's sitting there pulling the shucks down, and when the rolls get worn, it won't pull it off because the rolls are worn. You can see, I guess this is the side where we can see. Maybe. I guess we'll look from the inside. How about that? If we look forward from the top. Yeah, we can see it from the top. This is just called a dry bearing. I don't think there's a grease zerk on it. There is not, because I guess they assume the shaft turns that slow here in this casting. But what's funny is this one has actual ball bearings, so maybe some of these have been slightly modified over the years. That's not why we're here. We're spending too much time looking around inside. What we came here for was to put this belt on, but while it's not on the machine, we can do a good walk around to see all the inner workings. Like, there's the drive pulley for everything. This chain goes in and turns the husking rolls, and then the gearbox. I guess all the gearbox is there is to turn power, because off the husking rolls, I guess everything on this far side is run. Oh yeah, there's that main shaft coming through from the gearbox right there, and that chain runs up and turns everything else. This turns the upper trash rolls that feed here into the auger, and then also coming off this main drive shaft is this other chain, which I need to have some fun with these chains, because you can see how stiff they are. Maybe I should just bite the bullet and put all new chains on. And then this chain coming off runs the fingers. I mean, it doesn't take a whole lot of horsepower to run this. The John Deere I can turn over by hand. And even when it's fully loaded, you can still turn it over by hand. The only thing that really eats the power is the head pulling the stalks through. Now we only need to turn one of these loose, And we may have to actually probably tighten it as much as it is now, and I should not have taken that all off necessarily. That's going to twist stuff that we don't need twisted. Oh well. This is a very long belt. And I got lucky to find a belt through online means. There is a Facebook group for Unisystems. So I'm going to spend a bunch of time here turning the wrench. I believe I have it loose enough. That belt is off now. And it'll be easy to get it off the big main drive. And the problem is there's all this shielding in the way. And I'm probably going to end up having to pull this shielding off because it's just going to be a pain and be in the way. And the same thing back here. This one we may be able to cheat enough because it's flexible. Okay, I got that one. I mean, I would get part of the way through the season, this belt would probably end up coming apart on me. Especially like over here, you can see the layers of the belt are coming apart. Like that. Yeah, that wouldn't be good. Yep, there's no room. There is no room, guys. Who did this? And what's the chances these come loose nicely? That'd actually work. I'm hoping these are carriage bolts. We're gonna have to look into the darkness, and hopefully I can hold the back side of these. Yep, here's one. Maybe I can cheat and just undo a couple of them instead of all of them and just nicely bend this out of the way. My goal is not to have to put this belt on too often, so I'm not going to lose all these shields. They're here and in good shape. But if this thing won't... If it won't come undone... There. That's enough play. Ugh. So they obviously put this on before they painted. There's just like primer that doesn't have any factory orange paint on it. Because I guess they assembled and then slathered paint on. So now we have this lovely long coil to undo. There's 7 loops and about a 12-inch coil. That's 6 foot of stretch and we're still not fully undone. I don't know how many hundreds of inches long this is. Somewhere it was marked, and I think it's like close to maybe 100 and have to be over 120. Where did I see that marking at on here? It's easier to find when it was all coiled up. There it is. Or wait, probably could be 210 inches. It's definitely not 119, because if it was 119, that'd only make it, say, 5 foot of loop, and that's close to 8 foot right there. It's a fairly simple routing. I've dealt with worse belts, especially for like the mower deck on the TC30. That's a real snake. That goes everywhere. We'll do that last. Biggest thing is make sure we don't have this twisted. Sneak it by in here. Maybe I should have taken that one top one loose, would have made this easier. Oh well. Now this would have been a bear if we were sitting like this. Would all be like, there's the edge of the machine. We'd only have a few inches to snake this in, and we'd hate ourselves. So it's fantastic to be doing this right now while it's off. We should be able to pull it tight, and if we're lucky, it's really not that much difference in length than the other one. I mean, I had to take some off, but I can push it by hand that tight, and I would expect the belt to stretch, so I'm a little disappointed in the length. Now the other belt probably wasn't stretched that much. It just has age, and that's its biggest problem, is its age. So now a bunch of nut turning to get it tight. And we'll be back in a minute. If I had a book, I'm sure there would be a magical number to say, between these two pulleys you should have so many inches of deflection. But that seems fairly taut, going back to where it was, and it's believable enough. I think we'll be okay. The fans aren't a high force, or maybe I would say they're not necessarily high torque. They're a fairly low torque item because all they're doing is moving air. Don't want them to slip, but there's not going to be a heavy, I don't want to say stagnant or mechanical load. That's not the proper way to phrase it. But I'd like to think moving air is somewhat easy. So we're going to go with that. I can always reach down and adjust that if we need to. And I just got to put these couple bolts on for good looks. And that was just a quick little belt change on this machine to hopefully stop future problems from happening. And doing it while it's easy and off versus mounted on the mule. And I'm just trying to kind of look at this side to see if there's anything else I need to do. Like, try to check the oil in this gearbox. There's a grease zerk there and a grease zerk there. So I could just probably get away with cornhead grease or something. If it's a problem, I don't see a whole lot of oil leaking out of it. Of course, it may be one of those things. If there's no oil under it, then there's no oil in it. Hope that's not the case. Don't do that. I was trying to get away without needing a second wrench. And the problem with sealed bearings is that they're sealed. You only put grease in them once, and I get grease from the factory. You can't grease them again. Which is great that they're sealed. You don't have to put grease. However, they only get the grease once. And after sitting 10 years, this was in a dirt floor barn. So everybody's like, ooh, barn find, yeah, okay, sure, it's been inside. Lovely. But a dirt floor still has moisture coming up through it. So while it's mostly dry, you get like humidity. It's like sitting down in, I don't know, South Georgia or something. I don't know. Where there's high humidity all the time. So it's not that it's being drenched in rainfall, but there's just enough continuous moisture that works its way into things. So I'm a little worried. So far I've gotten everything to turn fairly easy. I'm turning the husking rolls, the two fans, and this upper portion of the feeder house. I've already turned that feeder house by hand, and I've turned the elevator with a wrench, and it all turned, so it wasn't locked up. It didn't like break free and then turn. Over here, that turns better now because I have this bearing out. This is a little beater, which unfortunately I can't get underneath there and show you very well, but there is the kernel saver below, and there's a beater up front. The kernel saver is dragging trash forward off the husking bed, and it's getting pushed down under the machine up here. And they have this little beater to assist in like pushing the longer stock pieces through, because if not, they would just get stuck there. And then the lower side of the chain pushes the kernels that are being saved back. Now this chain is rusty. It is hard to turn, and you've seen that I've got some marks there from a pipe wrench turning it, but I think it turns okay. I think it's still stiff, so it needs some run time. You can't really see through this little screen piece back here, but I believe that the sprockets in there, I don't know, either the bearings are built in or there's no bearing at all. And really, I'm just hoping that, that's a bad hope though, that it's just a bushing. The kernel saver chain is not supposed to be super tight. And I think this bearing is good. It still has orange paint on it, which is scary. This bearing had been replaced before because there is no orange paint left on any of it. And I'm doing this now, and I'm debating on whether I do this one. I had to destroy this one out of place, where the other one I can fix whenever. But it's one of these things where I am here right now that I could work on the other side later. And if there's problems back here on the kernel saver, I could deal with that from the outside. There's a shaft that goes through those sprockets that's bolted in right here, which makes me think that it could be loose enough to slide on out. Do I want to try that right now? No, because A, it's rusty, and B, it's rusty. This is, I mean, and this isn't even flat link. On the pull types, usually it's a flat link chain or a dry link, like the elevator chain here, whatever. Yeah, we can see it better at the bottom. There's lots of schmutz. Ugh. You know, usually the kernel saver chain is whatever, square link, flat link, dry link, where this is like a CA 550. And I've got I can turn the paddles by hand over the husking bed, all the fingers and such. I can only turn it so far because I run into the fact that I still have a chain on that sprocket, and which is pulling on trying to turn the rest of the machine, so it's difficult to turn these more than like one turn because the chain gets wrapped. Well, I found this lovely side access panel, which we can kind of look in below everything here on the husking bed. So that's kind of neat. I just thought we'd show that off, just because we could. But really what we're demonstrating over here is my joy of a Dremel. I had to cut the lock collar off, and the Dremel is small enough that I can work my way in there and not mar that up too bad. Like, we'll leave a small mark, I guess, if we have to. But it's a lot easier than using a cutoff on a standard angle grinder. These little blades just get in there. It's great. I'm glad I found these blades. Now, this Dremel doesn't have the durability and longevity of an angle grinder, because I've worn one out already this summer. But, you know, the low-end basic Dremel is, I don't know, like 50 bucks. Scary cheap. So even if I have to get a new one every year, it's not too horrendous. And it's great for situations like this, where yeah, I could sit here, get a torch out, and try to heat it up and get the rust out and hope to pull it off. Or I can just spend a few minutes cutting, hopefully not notch up the shaft too much, and not worry about burning my fingers off or the house down or the barn or whatever else. The only thing we got to worry about is sparks flying and that little blade coming apart, because these blades are very small and very thin, and they can come apart easily. I've done it once or twice. You got to watch and make sure you maintain a straight cut, because if you don't, and the blade starts getting pinched, that's when it'll start coming apart. We just need to get enough material cut off here so we can crack it. It helps if it's pretty well cut through. I'm hoping to only have to do one cut here, but may have to do that right there. Did you see how it was like sitting there shaking and jittering because it wasn't sitting in straight? That is what destroys the blades and makes them go flying. Although the farther worn down the blade gets, the safer we are, because it has less tip, like speed, out at the edge or the perimeter of the blade. I don't know, hopefully we cut enough and we can get it to crack. Our lovely chisel. Oh yeah. Okay, it split. Now hopefully I don't have to sit there and repeat this process and do it again, but I probably will. So yes, this is the joy of those barn find things. And the dumb part is, about 5 years ago I could have bought a 4-wheel drive, 4-row wide unisystem. But I did not have the funds back then. And I don't necessarily have the time now to fiddle with this one. But at least I know exactly what I'll have when we go to the field mostly, because I sat here and wasted my time fixing things. I may have to do that cut again. It'll save me sitting here trying to get this thing off, because I don't think it's turning and I can't get it to break. It's hardened steel, so it'll crack, it'll break easy, but this isn't, I don't think this is Chinesium. If it was Chinesium, I could probably get it to crack without having to cut it again. Oh well. That's why we don't like Chinesium. There we go, finally got it to crack. I made a small cut, and it created a weak point for this. I was running. Oh, well, I'm out of blade. That's what I love about these little Dremel bits, too. Then I can just, you pull that little collar down, undo it, and voila. And we got our money's worth out of that one. Huh. Let's hope I removed enough. I will say, now that this rusty bearing's out of the way, this whole shaft turns much easier now. He likes my use of a claw hammer. Guess what? You never know when you need to pry on something. Now that's some pieces. Time to go on a wild goose hunt to find this bearing. But here we're on the project I've been working on. I really need to get this going faster, but it's been slow in between things. Had to chop silage, and I've tried to put good solid focus on beans, we'll say, and haven't had the greatest of time to work on this because unfortunately, well, it's out here in the big barn instead of inside, and I've had part of the wait was finding bearings for this. Oh, that's good and tight at least, and this is a properly sealed bearing. These are just a 1-inch 100 RA bearing. RA is for the radius. It's a self-aligning bearing, and while we're here, I'm replacing these two lower ones because they're buried down in the frame on the picker in case there's ever problems. At least I'm starting with brand new ones. This old one wasn't bad. This is for the kernel saver down below here. Hopefully you can kind of see that in the side. This one here is for the beater. That one was bad. It was rusty and freezing up inside. And I've got to try to get this out of here. Now you saw me with the Dremel cut that one apart. And this one was solidly in place. Well, now it's not. And one thing I really got to be good about is keeping those bolts in place, or else I will thoroughly hate myself, because I had them come loose here, and ooh, that was not, now come back here, that was not a good day. Use a little Dremel wrench to hold it in place. Now, it was a challenge to find these bearings, yes and no. You can't get them through automotive places because they're not very common automotive-wise. They're listed as a wheel bearing. You know, it's just a ball bearing. It's not like it's used in transmissions or anything. And we kept being sent bearings with the smooth shoulder. Part of that, the parts counter guy did take some responsibility for, having a dyslexic moment, he said. Typing or looking at the number wrong or something. It's just a smooth shaft bearing. They're all over the place on this picker. There's one there. I think there's one buried back there. Maybe not. Fly. It is warm today. Very warm. It's going to be cold tomorrow, the day after. Gonna go to winter. So once I get these two bearings on, I then have to find the slip clutch knuckles for up there, which is kind of like, looks like this, before I'm ready to sit it on that picker, or on the power unit to get the picker rolling. Come on, now we gotta slide up in there, little guy. Last thing we'll do is we'll put the lock collar on. It's not sliding too bad, but it was a bear to get off. I guess I should have. Oh well, too late. The point is we better not have to replace this for a long, long time, because I'm doing it now, nice and fresh. Yes, I would like to not have to replace these, but I should have put anti-seize on it. Made it look like the Tin Man. But I didn't. So I may hate myself for that down the road, but that's why we have the handy dandy Dremel and that little blade. It's really good for getting in there. And hopefully by then, when I have to replace these again, it won't be so hard to find, because there won't be supply chain issues because all this virus mess. Which, that also, we've got those 3 grain bins over there. You know, really makes me wish I had another one functional for grain storage. But, like I said, there's more than just grain farming and tractors that goes on around here. So that's going to end up being a winter project instead of like a summer project. I've got the stuff to get one together. Now, life wouldn't be fun if there wasn't a long to-do list. Go ahead and tighten these little guys up. And that should hopefully pull our bearing on the shaft nicely. And we can give it a little bit of a, say, a settling tap to get everybody all in place. Plus, I have to tighten this back up, which is the tensioner for there. So I can't go too tight. I'm gonna watch myself. I think the back collar was on pretty good. Biggest thing we don't want to do is slide off of this and then ruin our seal. Okay. And of course, Dad took my special wrench for this out here. And for demonstration's sake, I'll put the lock collar on. When you put these on, you can kind of see that this side is thicker than that side, and that's how they lock. By just twisting the oblongedness of each piece against each other. Okay. So I fixed, you know, those bearings down low and put that belt on. And now I'm using my homemade grease needle. Actually, I found that it's a grease circ with it that connects to a tube. And it's being held in the lock and lube. Makes a perfect grease needle because the lock and lube holds it. And I'm greasing our surface here I mean, I only need a small amount instead of just sitting there and putting, say, a whole pump's worth on. I can just put on little ribbons of grease. Okay, probably good enough. Now, this is a New Holland thing. I don't know if New Idea says it in the books, but you're also supposed to grease these knuckles. On the New Hollands, you were supposed to, and I imagine so on this, so that way you're not rubbing dry, I don't know, I call these knuckles dry knuckles on each other. They're supposed to be greased. I didn't go overboard with the amount of grease on that, and I'm probably just gonna smash them together like that. That's a very minimal amount of grease. I should probably do that again. Put some more on here. I could probably do this with a without the little tube on the end, because I don't need to have it spread out like that. I could do full blobs out the end of the grease gun without such a fine ribbon. It'll go around a couple times and then we will hold the two halves together. Now I got these used out of a 310 picker, a New Idea pull type that my uncle has sitting in the woods for parts. And I guess I was correct in guessing that New Idea was either smart or lazy and made some parts somewhat interchangeable, like these slip clutch knuckle. I call it, like I said, I call them knuckles. These like these slip clutch pieces. Okay, there's grease in between them. There's grease there. I can slide that on. Next is our sprocket, which I took off. And got our grease on there. I guess I didn't go overboard, but oh well. And hopefully this isn't too hard to get on. I struggled to get it off. I have a handy dandy hammer here. It's probably isn't the best way to do it, but that's how we're gonna do it. It's gonna be loud for you guys because you're sitting on the machine. And probably being greasy there, this is gonna be a hard slide. We got that far. Now why won't we go? I need like the opposite of a gear puller. I need a gear pusher. Carefully alternating sides will get this on. Ooh, I gotta be careful there. I thought twisting I could twist it on. That's how I got it off. And we're actually kind of going on that way. The shaft I robbed these off the pull type picker. I could not turn it by hand and get it to move like this. Well, coming off. I could kind of get it to twist. There we go. Yeah, voila. And just like that, we are on. There's holes, if you can see those there, that the, say, fingers slide into. Voila. Hope it doesn't make it slip easy now. Of course, there was the one time where I greased lug nuts, and I should not have done that, because then things came off too easy. Okay. That's going on nicely. We have a handy dandy pipe wrench. Turn it on. This came off fairly easy, and the one on the picker came off okay, but it was sitting out in the woods, so that was only a small challenge. I gotta remember just how tight to tighten this. A book would probably tell me so much compression in the springs. I'm gonna try to remember, while looking at other ones of these, about how far on this was. And there was about 2 threads before we got to this nut piece that I'm twisting right now. Obviously, the tighter it is, the more force required to, you know, slip it. Let's see. Ooh, that's getting awfully compressed. See, now I can't even turn it. Or is that almost proper. Okay, well, we can get to the hole, and there's a little more than 3 there. There is some room in the spring, so we'll go with that. I don't know if I'd go another one, mostly because now it's getting to the point where it turns on me, because I'm turning everything else down the line. I'm turning the whole machine from right here. I can always adjust it later. It's no big deal. I got the cotter pin to put through it, or enough remnants of it. Okay. I got a plier to bend the other side. You know what bugs me most about these? Of course, I'm guilty of it, is when they're just over bent at the end. Yeah, that's probably plenty. It's not going to fall out. What else do you expect to do? It's got to be just a little knot straight. We got to put this chain back on, which that's fairly boring. And well, that's just putting that little slip clutch on, and I am so tickled that New Idea used the same parts. So this is a small slip clutch down there, and that drives the husking bed. And see, this shaft comes down to drive this, which is just the upper section. Oh man, it's dark in here. The upper section of the feeder house, and that comes through up top here and drives the kernel saver down below. So you need to hook all this back up, and it's lovely. I can turn it over by hand thanks to the big drive pulley and test it out. So give me a second to hook up some chains. Okay, it's time for the magical moment to see how good we did. I know I still have to oil up chains, but it should turn well enough for now. That we are turning this forward, which is from this orientation counterclockwise. And everything's turning. We don't hear anything popping, cracking, or snorting. This chain is letting us know that it needs oil severely, and some run time as it rubs on our tensioning block there. But most of what I'm watching is down low. There's that our kernel saver chain is moving, which before, when that bearing was very rusted, we were slipping this clutch, and that's one of the few pieces that were left in it. And by the looks of it, the few pieces that I found in there, this one's been slipped a bunch. But as power comes through, see it, like I said, it comes through and runs all that lower stuff and the paddles here over the husking bed. So in slow motion, everything turns over okay. I can't turn it with the speed anywhere near what the machine would have. It is a little stiff because I know the chains, yeah, I know they need oil. And I'm most really worried about that kernel saver chain down there, because that's real chain. It's not like those flat links or whatever you call it. That's CA 550 chain, and that's obviously heavy duty chain. More iron to it, more iron, more rust. More rust makes it stiff, blah blah blah. Shlabba ding dong. But we're ready enough, I think, to figure out how to put this on the mule. I just have to finish getting the chopper off.